How do these career politicians end up falling into the world of this kind of fraudulent activity?
Real quick on Eric Adams himself, retired police captain, always a problem, always an edgy guy. Did not make many friends in New York along the way. I'm sure we're going to see recordings. I know we already have one obstruction where he made up this very sloppy excuse, and he said, yeah, after I realized I had screwed up on this one flight and this upgrade, I put $10,000 cash in one of my secretary's drawers and sent her an email that said, make sure this gets back to the person that it goes to.
Why is it illegal, the activities and the actions that Mayor Adams was engaged in? Why is that illegal? We don't care if they know why they're doing it or they don't know why they're doing it. They're degrading American capacity. They're degrading American national security. They're hurting their fellow Americans, and they are supposed to be public servants. Jim, I'm super excited to have this conversation because this is the first time that you and I have actually just paired up to talk about what's happening in the world. And I couldn't imagine a more interesting and more relevant topic than what's happening right now in New York. In New York, Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted on multiple charges, including conspiracy and fraud. But what's really interesting to me is also in that umbrella is this idea of an unregistered foreign agent. Can you give us a quick rundown? What is happening in New York? Why is it important? Why is it relevant? And why is it such a big deal?
Yeah, man, it's unbelievable how this came up, and it popped on my screen this morning. The indictment was actually leaked out last night. So you saw some political banter going back and forth, which I think is hilarious. But real quick on Eric Adams himself, retired police captain, always a problem, always an edgy guy. Did not make many friends in New York along the way. And this, I imagine, I did not know that this investigation has been going on since he stepped foot into the mayor's office. So if you think about that, that's rare in and of itself. We've seen people here on the East Coast like Bob Menendez, the former senator, and finally convicted after a couple tries. And then you see guys like Bob Torricelli, another senator who took a hit years ago. But I've never heard of a case that was open prior to or just prior to being sworn in as a public official here in New York. The thing that bothers me,
one of the things that's really worth mentioning here is the fact that New York has been making headlines for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is it is the state and New York City is the city where Donald Trump also had to face a courtroom not too long ago that found him guilty of criminal activity, right? So now Absolutely. We are once again back in New York, only this time instead of dealing with a former president who's on the Republican ticket, we're dealing with a current mayor who's heavily Democratic. And yet still we find this confliction, this history of accusations of fraud, conspiracy, working with foreign organizations, foreign agencies.
Absolutely, Andy. And the thing, when I look at it, he was very vocal against this migrant population that's destroying his city, according to him. So he has been out there, not just on the New York, the tri-state area circuit, but he's been a national figure with regards to definitely going after the Biden administration with regards to the migrant fraud. So there's all these questions flying around now, whether or not this was kind of a little payback for what he's talked about and how he's kind of taken a stand on a bunch of the migrant situations. But what's most interesting to me, and when I saw this pop up as indictment, it's actually charge number 1, which talks about straw donors. Okay, and for those of us who kind of are familiar with that in my world, straw donors is the oldest kind of way to get around election laws. And we know that both states and the federal election laws are pretty clear. You cannot take a certain amount from a certain amount of people. You certainly can't take anything from foreign government or from foreign citizens. And you have to be very cautious about the exact amount and the timing of the cycle. So there's the primary cycle, there's the general cycle, and there's an amount that can be given from one person, not reimbursed. And that's the big issue here. So he went out and he sought straw donors, and he had people create straw donors. So he had people that actually were able to say, oh, yes, I'm eligible, when either they didn't exist or they were getting reimbursed by a federal government, by a foreign government, by the Turkish government. So, people sit here and they say, yeah.
Well, it's so interesting because nobody thinks of Turkey when they think of foreign influence. And what's fascinating is you also mentioned Bob Menendez. I wasn't Bob Mendes associated with Egypt,
With Egypt.
another country that nobody thinks about when they think about foreign influence.
Exactly. And it's like, it drives me crazy because it's these lavish gifts and opportunities that these guys take in return for sometimes not even things that they can do. You know, it's one thing. We've got the Hobbs Act, which basically says you must have, so acting in your official capacity, you receive some type of gift in order for you to act officially. Now, many times they don't have the ability to do that, and they don't have to complete the task. So, in other words, I can take an upgraded flight to Africa through Turkey. Everything went through Istanbul. Isn't that amazing? And I can take that upgrade, and all I have to do is say, to be charged with this crime, is say, no problem, I'll make that phone call. You don't have to make the phone call. You just have to say it. So the standard is very clear, and it's a difficult standard to kind of get through, which cracks me up as I look at these things. These guys don't learn along the way. They don't learn what's right and what's wrong with regards to that. So
what do you think? How does it happen, Jim? How does a stand-up career politician, right, like the mayor, like Senator Menendez, how do these career politicians end up falling into the world of this kind of fraudulent activity, this world of unregistered foreign agents, which is interesting because being a registered foreign agent is not illegal. It's
correct.
illegal to be an unregistered foreign agent. So how does it happen, and what is it that they're doing, and why is it against American law?
Absolutely. So I look at it, and I often think about the flying under the radar, right? So for so many years, they don't get the right education or training that says, listen, this is off limits. You can't do this. So what the philosophy is amongst many of the corrupt politicians, and not everyone's corrupt. We know that, right? But the corrupt politicians, they look and they fly just below the radar. And so 1 year goes by and they don't put down in their election form, and you have to fill out, basically it's an affidavit that says, here are the gifts I accepted, here are the things I did. Of course, there's amounts, as we know, being federal employees, you can't take more than $50. You can't go to here. You can't do this. You can't do that. So it's very clear, and they're supposed to abide by those same rules. And the difference is they also have donor rules as well. So a year goes by, nobody questions them, and they didn't put certain things down. Maybe it was an expensive dinner. Maybe it was a little bit more. Maybe it was a trip to stay in someone's condo down in Florida for the weekend. And then that didn't happen. So the next year goes out, and he started this crap in 2016, this guy, right? So the next year goes by, and hey, you know what, man, I actually flew and got first class upgrade, and I didn't put it down. I didn't get caught. So that kind of, you start to feel very complacent, and you start to feel more than just lucky, but you start to say, nobody's looking at me. Who the hell am I? Well, now what does Adam start doing? He starts becoming vocal, right? Because obviously he's got aspirations for the next office. So within that, people start looking. Yeah. People start looking about what's going on with his staff, what's going on in his world. And now they see him in $3,000 suits. They see him buying properties. They see him flying around the world. They see him on TV. He's like the next, he's the next Al Sharpton, for lack of better terms. With this, his platform is, immigrants and migrants, right? So it just becomes complacency. And Andy, it's very similar to when you look at any type of fraud, health fraud, right? Healthcare fraud. You look at docs that maybe stay under the $100,000 fraud, kind of threshold in their mind. Maybe it's a dentist, right? So you come to me, I look at your tooth. I know that you need a one-sided filling, but I do the one-sided, but I charge the insurance company for 4. And my justification is, you know what? They don't pay enough anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now a year goes by and $80,000 more that you've gotten that services you didn't perform becomes a way of life. Same things with the politicians until you get flashy enough where you're doing things outside of the realm. You start to talk to people. You start to brag about it. Your pride sets in and people start looking at you, especially the FBI's corruption.
Yeah. And that's where it gets sticky, because this is not easy work. This is not easy investigative work.
No.
So first question. When I was at CIA, you were at FBI, we were grunts, dude. We were line officers doing the shit work. We didn't have people who worked for us. So when you and I filled out our our claims, our disclaimers, our gifts, and everything that we got from anybody, right? Whether it was something we got from DoD or something we got from an alumni association from a military academy, right? When we were filling out those documentation, it was you and me literally filling out our own documentation. Is the idea that like is Mayor Adams filling out his own affidavit, or is that some secretary of a secretary? Could it be a mistake that he was not aware of, or is it truly criminal intent?
Yeah, I love that because it's two sides to it. On the election side of the house, definitely not him filling that out, right? So when we're looking at people who are donating, and that's a staffer or that's somebody that he hires to run his next campaign or to run for whatever other office he's thinking about going to, that I can kind of see being, wow, he really wasn't sure on that gift that he got at that dinner, whatever, right? And there's other issues with that, as we know, for his particular case. But on the personal side, you are, even at a level of the mayor of New York City, an 8 million citizen city, you still have the responsibility to fill out your own form. And that's because only sometimes what you got. I remember getting like a bottle of booze at Christmas time from an informant, and I'd be like, oh my God. And I would say to the guy, thank you so much, but I have to give it back.
Yeah.
But why? And then you explain to him why. Well, I can't take it from you because I have to fill this form out. Then I get a polygraph, whether or not you and I are making up allegations so that you can get money and I can get people arrested. Understand? and they'd be like, oh, now that makes sense. So that's kind of it. So you definitely have the responsibility to fill out your own form.
It made for great parties though, because I remember the same thing. End of year, all of your foreign partners or foreign contacts, your collaborators, they're all gifting you, and you can't accept any of it. But at least at CIA, we were kind of like, it's rude to say no, so we just said yes, filled out our form, and then everything went to the party table in the main hall of the whatever division it was. Yeah. And then 5:00 comes around and it's happy hour on top shelf liquor that everybody got gifted to them over the course of the year.
That's exactly right. So, but in the political world, it's more, right? So they're looking for once they kind of see that you're ready to play and that they have some type of official action that could benefit you. In this case, I think I read it was like a fire department approval for a Turkish consulate in Brooklyn. Right. So he forced the hand of the fire department inspector to come out and approve this particular set of plans. Right. So a couple of things that go wrong with that. First off, it's terrible that he would put someone in the fire department now is on the hook for either having done it or not doing enough investigation behind the scenes to figure it out. Right. But the other side of it is that stuff wasn't safe. It wasn't safe to put a building there. First off, that's on the level of construction. Now look at all the other implications that come with the Turkish consulate sitting in Brooklyn with Mayor Eric Adams as their guy,
their godfather, right? Their rabbi. Yeah.
So here we go. And in the meantime, now you start to track the trips. You start to track the upgrades, and not just with him, but with others, partners that he's taken along the way. Right. Straight up cash, kind of.
For a guy who was climbing the political ladder, so compromised as a mayor, possibly compromised before becoming a mayor, where would he have gotten to, right? And from an intel perspective, that's what we're really gambling on. Nobody tries to turn the president of a country into a reporting asset. You try to turn like a third secretary into a reporting asset, and then groom them and prepare them for the success as they rise up the political ladder. Last two questions for you, Jim, because I don't think that the general American population understands this. When it comes to creating a lawful and competitive investigation that should end in the successful prosecution of corruption, fraud, unregistered foreign activity, that is not easy investigative work. It's not like you see in the movies. It's not fun. Can you give us just a sense of what kind of work would have gone into even getting ready for this indictment? How many people, how big of a team, how many months, years, how thick is the paperwork that has to be submitted before the indictment even happens?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And if you look at the way the Bureau is set up for corruption work, there are segments of, especially in New York City, There's squads, which are about 12 to 18 agents, along with their analysts, along with their their specialists, their OSINT people, their open source investigators, coupled with an ASAC, an assistant special agent in charge, that's guiding that, coupled with, I heard them mention 6 assistant United States attorney, plus Damian Williams, plus the U.S. attorney himself is in the middle of this thing. So that's the manpower that goes into it. Now it becomes a question of sources, which cooperating witnesses were flipped. And clearly from this indictment, I could see there were a few, mostly on the ability to get into search warrants, to get your probable cause for those search warrants, to understand what the buildings look like, what his home looked like, what the interim police chief or police commissioner's home looked like. They went into everywhere and anywhere. You see the resignations that are going on just from this this falling out of what this man has done. So it's a long-term, to me, it's probably at least a year and a half of investigative every day. So these squad members are on that case every single day. They live and they breathe it. I'm sure we're going to see recordings. I know we already have one obstruction where he made up this very sloppy excuse. And he said, yeah, after I realized I had screwed up on this one flight and this upgrade, I put $10,000 cash in one of my secretary's drawers and sent her an email that said, make sure this gets back to the person that it goes to. I mean, if you really want to go ahead and take a bad situation and just make it worse, do something stupid like that, right? So I'm sure we were monitoring that transaction very well. And we may find out there were actual bugs or cameras in City Hall.
Yeah.
It's very possible. So they took his phone today. They took some other folks' phones. We're going to see whether or not people knew this was going on and said nothing, or I hope this isn't the case, did more to get their fair share. So it is a very intense, very exhaustive investigation that requires it requires your old check flipping, your old follow the money. It requires some significant recordings with transcription analysis, and then based on those particular situations, the next step going forward, tons of surveillance overseas on these trips. I'm getting the inkling they followed him on some of these trips, some of these later trips. So it is very intense and
all kept secret. And that's what's so fascinating. All kept secret.
Even
from the mayor's office, from one of the most powerful politicians in America.
Yep. Even inside the bureau, Andy, because you just don't know. And it's not that anyone's on the take within the bureau. Maybe, who the hell knows within law enforcement, but my thought in New York especially, but my thought process is we want to protect people that may have some type of interaction with that mayor's office for good reasons. It might be the public affairs person who deals with their public affairs person. If there's an inkling that, hey, something's going on, you never know what people mention, not thinking that they're harming anything. Yeah, damn, we've been talking about this secretary for what's going on? And then all of a sudden it clicks. Wait a minute, that's the secretary that we saw the email go out for the cash to be cut. You just never can take a chance. So it's need to know, right? Like we always grew up with, you need to know basis and you don't need to know.
Well, what's awesome is it shows professional secret keepers can make this work. Because you just described a whole squad of people, 6, 8, 12 people, multiple levels of authority and jurisdiction, all working together for more than a year and keeping it quiet, keeping it out of the media, keeping it away from the mayor, keeping it away from the mayor's office to do the right work, because they all know that if they mess up one day over the course of those 18 months of investigation, by the time this thing gets to trial, they could lose the whole thing.
That's exactly right, Andy. I mean, that's a big part of it. With trial prep, it's all about sealing that lid, right? So finalizing that case so that when we indict, when the bureau indicts something, you're in trouble. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's very rare that you have a defense attorney that has the skills to kind of poke holes, and they are out there. I won't say who it is because he'll get business tonight from Adam. But ultimately, you have to have it tight. You have to have it sealed tight, which means it's two ways, right? Sometimes people would get very upset saying, "Why didn't you include me on this investigation? I'm one of the best interviewers that you've had," because I'm protecting you. Because I know the people and I know they're going to knock your door down for the next year for you to tell them information. Not saying you're going to tell them, but do you need that aggravation? No, you're working on other things that I need you to work on. So that's the key here. So it is pretty amazing that we really have not had leaks since Peter Strzok and whoever the other boob was. I won't mention Andy's boob, but I like Andy. But that we haven't had those situations because we've been better about it.
Yeah. So here's my last question for you, and I feel like this is a very relevant question because of what you were saying earlier, right? When you look at these politicians and you consider their professional development or lack thereof, they just, and to a certain extent, they never learned the importance of doing things a certain way. They never learned the importance, arguably, we can make the case that they never learned the importance of what we would call counterintelligence, that there's somebody out there trying to manipulate them or take advantage of them. So we're a country that believes that you are innocent until proven guilty.
Absolutely.
Right? But we are also a country that believes in the rule of law. So why is it illegal? The activities and the actions that Mayor Adams was engaged in? Why is that illegal? What's illegal about being an unregistered foreign agent? What's illegal about fraud? What's illegal about corruption? What's illegal about saying yes to a Turkish embassy across from a fire department in the Bronx or in the Queens? Like, why is that a problem?
So for me, and I know this is your thought too, it comes down to national security. And why do we do what we're doing? Why do me and you and everybody else that we have on the team do what we're doing? And why did we do it before for so long? For national security reasons, to make sure that all the people that we know and love are protected, right? This gives an unfair advantage at a time that's crucial to not having that, especially with this election that's going on, especially where you never know who's fighting across lines and trying to make someone else look bad. I mean, you're going to see that. You've already seen some of it. Yeah, see, we knew the Dems are really bad in New York City, right? That's why they should have been tougher on this. But it's illegal because it makes our country less safe.
And I want to dig into that because that is exactly my understanding as well. And I didn't come from law enforcement. CIA doesn't do law enforcement. We break laws. We just break foreign laws. Your job at FBI is to maintain the sanctity, the protection, and the adherence of American law, right? When it comes to foreign agents, right? And when you talk about what we call foreign agents, registered foreign agents, unregistered foreign agents, that is the closest commercial term to agents of influence, foreigners who are trying to influence American decisions, American political decisions, financial decisions, commercial decisions, etc. So the unfair advantage that you're talking about in the case of Mayor Eric Adams is that Turkey, as a country, had the ability to influence the mayor of New York City to change policy, make fiscal decisions, make business decisions that benefited who? Not New York.
That's right.
Not the United States. They were decisions that the mayor was making that could benefit Turkey.
Absolutely.
Right? And what's fascinating is if you go back just the last 2 years, 2023, 2024, New York, to their credit, has been very active in investigating, pursuing, indicting, and winning cases of unregistered foreign agents. We talked about Senator Bob Menendez in New Jersey, I want to say, is where Menendez was. Right. There's also a fantastic case called Sue Me Terry, who's a former CIA colleague of mine, who was also indicted as an unregistered foreign asset for the Republic of Korea, for not North Korea, but South Korea. So these are like Egypt, Turkey, Korea. These are countries that the average American is like, those are our allies. Fuck no.
They're not.
They are independent, sovereign nations that want to screw us at every possible opportunity. And if they can get an advantage by corrupting one of our officials, for damn sure they're going to take it. And it's just so fascinating because that's the world that we live in. It's the world that you and I came from in government. It's the world that you and I still play in now in the commercial sector. And it's a world that we get to share with everybody else.
That is exactly right. You know, we don't know the extent of the damage that this guy did, that Adams did. We still don't know what Menendez did damage-wise. Those people they kind of go away, right? Oh, we didn't get through, but we got what we needed, but we could have got more, right? I think back to, real quickly, a case in the early 2000s with a guy named Bob Torricelli, and the source that we flipped was a guy named David Chang. And Chang, this is the craziness of this. This is how corrupt some people are. Chang came to him with two things. He needed to have grain deals that he had supposedly negotiated with, ready? North Korea. okay, to get that grain released. And he said he coupled that with, by the way, Bob, what we'll say or what we'll do is that we're going to also seek and find POWs that were left behind in North Korea. Now, to you and I, if a nonprofit came to us and said, "Hey, we have leads on some POWs that were left behind," that is a noble and valiant effort. But when you couple it with hundreds of thousands of dollars to negotiate a grain deal with North Korea, that Torricelli said he could do, by the way. He's, oh, I have no problem. We have letters, we had phone calls, everything else, right? That's the level of where some people are with regards to selling their office, just selling it away with no thought about what American citizens might suffer or whether or not our national security suffers. This is the same pattern we're seeing. For every one of these guys that gets caught, there's 8 or 9 that we just can't close the lid on those.
And that's what's killing me, man. You're totally right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was our rule of thumb when it came to moles inside CIA. If there is one that you find, there are 4 more that you can't.
Amen.
So we've got professional politics. The United States has become a country where politics is a profession. It's a big part of the reason that Donald Trump has so much support, despite all of the other craziness and drama around him. He is not a career politician, and Kamala Harris, Joe Biden are career politicians. So America's making this choice, coming to the realization that we have been promoting professional politics, which is not what the representative republic that our founding fathers created was supposed to be.
Absolutely, man.
And that's the problem. The problem is when you have professional politicians, the only way they succeed in their career is to continue going up. And they will take advantage of every benefit that they believe they control, including their title, their office, and their signature. And even if sometimes they don't understand what they're doing, other times they fully understand what they're doing. At the end of the day, to you and me, it's irrelevant. We don't care if they know why they're doing it or they don't know why they're doing it. They're degrading American capacity. They're degrading American national security. They're hurting their fellow Americans, and they are supposed to be public servants.
Exactly right. You know, doing it for the right reason, and there's very few of those. My thought is always this: if there was any way to capture these good ones early and show them the lessons that go with this, because if you're doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, especially in government office, it doesn't take much to piss off the opposition or piss a constituent off. And next thing you know, everything's on you, right? The camera's on you and you're fighting it off. If only they would do it. How many are there that are doing it for the right reasons? I mean, I know a few, you probably know a few, but it always like bothers me why you would go into either local or state or federal politics when you're making, it's about the money once they get in there.
So 2 things for anybody who's paying attention, for anybody who's still watching, 2 important things here. 1, if you're watching and you are part of any kind of new politicians, new political cabinet, new political party, breakout kind of candidates, reach out to Jim and I, reach out to info@everydayspy.com, because we actually are part of a group that trains people how to keep themselves on the right side of the law so they don't make stupid mistakes. So feel free to reach out to us anytime, because that is exactly what we're here for. We believe in the American process, and we believe in the American political process, and we believe that if we follow the process, we will remain the world's largest superpower. For those of you who are not part of politics at all, but you are interested in understanding how it is that Jim and I look at the world, how we look at it the same way, but also how we look at it differently, go ahead and open the description below. Click on the link in there. It's going to take you to everydayspy.com. It's going to take you to an awesome little spy quiz that will help show you how you already think like a spy in ways that you may not realize. Jim, what an awesome conversation. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for flagging this headline when it came across your desk so that we could share it with the world, man.
Definitely, Andy. And, you know, as soon as I saw it, I chuckle and I cry in the same portion, because it's just, we just don't do enough to make sure these people, you know, understand, like you said, understand what the hell they're doing wrong. Some of them don't. They truly don't until it's too late, but most know exactly what they're doing. And it's all. And
what's interesting to me, Jim, is you live within half a day's drive of every case that we talked about today. So you are in the belly of the beast when it comes to corruption and foreign agents. So I am sure this is not the last time we'll be having this conversation, brother.
Look, can I say one more thing? One of my best agents of all time one time told one of our big bosses, Give me a map of New Jersey and a dart. You throw the dart. I'll make a case in the town within 30 days, wherever you hit. And, and he was spot on. He was
Wow.
spot the hell on, which is scary.
Well, that's what comes with power, right? The heartbeat of our country is also the center point of our power, man. Anyways, folks, thank you very much for joining us. Jim DiOrio, take a chance. Look him up when you get a chance. Everyday Spy, Andrew Bustamatne. And if you're still paying attention, if you're still curious about how we see the world, click on the link in the description below, and we will see you on the other side. Take care, folks.
So fresh, so